Let me first tell you, and the slides tonight, by the way, are just kind of a supporting visual aid for you. I'm going to use those to cue some conversation, but by no means will you have to fill in any blanks or anything like that. You do have a copy of the notes which parallel what we're going to talk through tonight almost verbatim. I did come across a few little additional nuggets I wanted to add in over the weekend, so there's a couple of little things not in your slides. I'll be sure and point those out, but don't worry about that. Those notes are for you, just to take notes in the margin if you would like. And if not, put them to the side and sit back and relax. That's fine too. But a couple of things I want to start with. First of all, and I thought this might concern Leland since he hired me to be here, but I want to tell you I'm not a consultant and I am not a motivational speaker. I'm not that guy. I don't believe that I have the right to stand behind a podium with a microphone and tell you how to do your business and how to do your life. That is not why I'm here. I am a couple of things that I think may be consistent with who you guys are, and maybe some things where we'll have some shared values and some shared experiences. I'm a 20-year field sales guy. I got my start with Coca-Cola Enterprises based out of Atlanta. I worked in a town called, I lived in Macon, Georgia, actually worked in Warner Robins, Georgia, if you're familiar with that, and went through the Coca-Cola sales training program. Spent 11 to 12 years with an insurance company in Birmingham, Alabama. So I've done a lot of field coaching. I've done a lot of management. I'm actually an ex-high school teacher, wannabe baseball coach. I was a secondary education major and thought I wanted to teach and coach baseball for the rest of my life, and the Lord had different plans for me, and so I followed that and have been able to put my passion, really allow it to come to life in the business world. And so some of that experience you are going to see here tonight. I'm also a guy that's made a ton of mistakes. Leland mentioned in the intro I like to tell a good story. I'll give you a little more background about that too in a little bit, but a lot of my stories are embarrassing to me, but they're just experiences of things that I've done wrong, and they make great learning lessons and great stories in the future, so we'll talk about some of that tonight as well. And then I have three heroes. My two grandfathers and my father are my heroes. And one of my grandfathers, if I slip in the word Pop, you just know who it is. Pop is my grandfather. He passed away in October of last year. But he spent his life really doing something very similar. He worked in a foundry in Birmingham, Alabama, starting in 1944. Worked his way all the way up after making 62 cents an hour in 1944 into management, and used those lessons to do something very similar to this throughout his career. And he has been very, very influential on me. I think I've got a photo here. That's my grandfather. In fact, I told someone, I think I told Nat earlier, it's a great memory not only to see his picture, but for me to be here at this hotel. He brought our family here about 6 years ago for a family reunion, and so I walked through the doors this afternoon and just had great memories of being back here. And a lot of what you will hear from me tonight are just great stories and life lessons that he taught. So he's very special to me, and that's why I wanted to have his photo up there. Okay, let's get down to business. Why are we here? Other than the great meal and a lot of the fun we can have in Nashville, what I wanted to do is just start off the evening with a couple of really simple points about what we hope to accomplish tonight. And then after I'm finished tonight, it'll either be good news to you or bad news to you, but I'm back on at 9 o'clock in the morning. So based on how this goes tonight, that's either good or bad. But tonight, we're going to start with basically one simple takeaway, one simple point, okay? And it's to challenge the way you relate to the people around you. Now, let me say this before we go any further. This is not a Dr. Phil session, okay? Don't worry, oh my gosh. What in the world are we going to talk about? He's here to talk about relationships, and I don't know, where is this going? Leland, you got the wrong guy, okay? Well, I put in parentheses with emphasis on management, okay? But what the point that I wanted to make is that many of the things we're going to talk about tonight, and also that will carry over to tomorrow morning, will be very relevant to many of the people around you, whether they are a direct report of yours, whether they are a coworker, whether they are an industry partner, a strategic partner. Many of the things that you will hear tonight and tomorrow will apply no matter what that relationship is, okay? The content will be directed to managers and to folks that are, responsible for others and the growth of a company and the staffing and the development of the people in your organization. But I think you'll see that these things really apply across a broad range of different settings and different relationships, okay? So that's going to be one goal, is to really challenge the way you relate to people. Secondly, to offer solutions or new ideas for your consideration and application. So what's going to happen is we're going to dive in tonight. We're really going to kind of expose some thinking things. And what I hope happens is you leave here thinking, well, he didn't tell us what to do. I mean, we kind of feel beat down a little bit, not so much, but, really challenged, so that you're just, I know tomorrow morning you will just be dying to come back here at 9 o'clock to get some of those answers, okay? So that's really point number 2. Tonight really is the focus on the challenge part, okay? And then tomorrow will be the solutions part, where you really get some good stuff, I think, to take away with you. Now, let me go through some disclaimers, okay, before we dive into the good stuff tonight. A couple of disclaimers. Here's the first one. The first disclaimer is I want to share with you Leland's advice. Now, this was good stuff. This was really good stuff. Leland's advice was, he said, listen, the first night, just stay kind of light. Let's laugh a little bit. Let's not dig in too deep. Let's have a good time. Let's get people thinking a little bit, but let's not go too deep. Let's make it a really nice, warm, welcoming message the first night, okay? And so that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And like I said a moment ago, when you leave here, you're probably going to leave with more questions than answers, but that's okay. That's where tomorrow comes back in. So that was great advice from Leland. Here's the second thing. I really want to recommend a couple of things to you, not only for tonight, but for tomorrow morning. Keep a journal of real-world questions. Here's what that means. Some of the stuff that I'm going to go through, you may feel like, wow, he is talking to me. And I'm not really sure how this would work in the real world. Todd, I'm going to need some XYZ, 1, 2, 3. I mean, I believe what you're saying, Todd. I hear you. But how do we take that into the real world? That's what I want you to write down, okay, on your notepad. Write that stuff down. Let's have some real questions. And either at the end of these seminars or somehow, some way we'll work those questions in. But I want you to really focus on those real world questions. And then the other thing, like we say in South Alabama, I want you to watch out for the gotta gets. Okay? These are just things you gotta get. Okay? They may not necessarily be on the slide. There'll be things that maybe come to mind or that come out in conversation, and you'll jot those down too. Those are freebies. Those are just things you got to get related to this subject, okay? So that's the second disclaimer. Here's the third one. I'm holding this microphone for a reason. Okay? That's where the interaction comes in. I'm going to need some feedback from you guys. There'll be a couple of opportunities for that tonight. And then here's really the fourth disclaimer. This is important. I'm the elephant in the room guy. I just do not like when there's something going on or when there's something everybody's thinking, the kind of the elephant in the room. I'm the guy that's like, hey, there's an elephant over there. I've got a 10th grade daughter, so she's in high school, kind of the weird social thing. I've got a 6th grade daughter. It's even more weird when you're in 6th grade, right? And what I've told them is, these weird scenarios, and they're learning to interact with adults and those kind of things. I said, some of these scenarios, they're only as weird as you make them, If you act normal and you go up, my 11-year-old, by the way, this is going to sound really weird, but my 11-year-old is a competitive golfer, a little girl, competitive. She's learned to introduce, all right, got some golfers in the house. I mean, she's learned through golf to introduce herself to adults and say, hey, my name's Brooke, So what I try to do when there's these situations that everybody's thinking about is go, hey, that's it right there. And that's going to happen probably several times tonight and certainly tomorrow. But the reason that's important to me is because Leland asked me here to do a job. I drove 7 hours today. Some of you drove longer. Some of you maybe flew. I don't know. Leland asked me to come here and lead this session and tomorrow's session, and I believe I owe it to you to be as real as possible. Okay? As we go through this, you are going to see a lot of things you are already doing, and you're going to be nodding your head a lot. And what I want you to do is look out for those things that go, hey, that mattered to me. Okay? And I don't know what it is. If there's 65 people in here, and you leave with 65 different takeaways, then I've done my job. I am not here to tell you how to do it. I'm here to stir the pot. And what I hope is you find some takeaways that matter most to you. Okay, if we're going to be challenged in our thinking, we've got to start with the idea of a paradigm and what a paradigm means. Great opportunity for a microphone. Let me get the microphone turned on here. We'll show you how this works. Can somebody tell me, raise your hands, because I can bring the microphone so people can hear. Test, test, test. What is a paradigm? Show of hands, anybody? Come on, it's just me and you. I mean, come on. Let me see a hand. Who knows what a paradigm? Okay, Leland's going to, we all know Leland. Let me show you how this works. And this, if you weren't planning on volunteering, this will really make you want to volunteer. When someone volunteers in one of my seminars, here's what's going to happen. They're going to stand up, and they're going to introduce themselves and who they work for, and you are going to respond with a rousing, warm welcome. Will you help me with that, okay? Sir, will you tell us your name and who you work for?
Yeah, my name is Leland Ulrich.
Leland! Is this on? That was horrible. That was horrible. We got to try it again. Sir, tell us your name.
My name is Leland Ulrich.
Leland! Okay. All right. What's a paradigm?
Well, I have a pair of quarters in my pocket, but I don't have a paradigm.
Exactly. I can understand that, being from South Alabama. I've actually told that joke in Alabama and got no response. Woo! No, a paradigm is not 20 cents, okay? If you still didn't get it, you've got a different seminar to attend tomorrow morning, okay? Paradigms, 20, okay. What is a paradigm? Here's a couple of things. A paradigm is a set way of doing things. I'm going to turn this battery off because I know so many of you will be wanting to volunteer going forward. A set way of doing things or seeing things. It's the filter that you see through. The filter you see things through, okay, is what a paradigm is. The way you believe things operate. Okay? Leland doesn't know this, but when he asked what was the president's name in 1978, most of us did not come up with the answer he was looking for. Notice I did not say the right answer. This is not about right or wrong. This is about the answer he wanted, because we were limited by a paradigm. We were limited by the words he was saying and how we filtered those words into our minds. We were very limited by that, and many of us did not come up with the answer for that. Okay? Let me give you another example. This will really kind of drive home what a paradigm is. Have you heard the pot roast story? Some of you know the pot roast story. Here's the pot roast story. My wife and I had a couple over for dinner. We had some friends over for dinner last week. And my wife cooks a mean pot roast. Now, I don't know why, but when she cooks the pot roast, she cuts the ends off. So the couple that was over, the gentleman said, his name's Chris. Chris said, Todd, why did Leslie cut the ends off the roast? Chris, I don't know. Leslie, call your mom. Because Leslie said, that's the way my mom always did it. So Leslie called her mom. Mom, why did you cut the ends off the roast? I don't know. It's the way Granny did it. Well, let's call Granny. Granny, why did you cut the ends off the roast before you cooked it? Some of you know the punchline. Right? The pot wasn't big enough. Right? The pot wasn't big enough. That is a paradigm when things happen a certain way and you don't know why, and it's not a matter of right or wrong. In fact, I think that's what the next slide says. Okay, paradigms are not necessarily good or bad or right or wrong. However, they can be very, very debilitating or limiting when we get stuck in them. Well, guess what? Right now, we all have paradigms for how we relate to those people around us. Now remember, I gave a lot of scenarios, not only maybe folks that work for you or work with you or folks that are in your community, but we have paradigms as to how those relationships work, particularly management relationships, which is our focus here tonight. So, Let's look at several examples. And before we get into really the meat of tonight, I want to give you some examples of a couple of paradigms. Play along with me here. Example number one. Here's my instructions. You've got this in your handout. You can also see it on the slide if you'd like to. Here's my question for you. If you know the answer, or if you happen to be like an out loud thinker, try to kind of keep it to yourself so you don't give the answer to your neighbor. I want to know how many squares there are. Just to yourself, to yourself, just to yourself. I want to know how many squares there are. Okay, now here's a hint. If you didn't get at least 16, remember that other seminar I referred to? You're going to need to be in that one. I think it's next door tomorrow morning. Okay, so we got 16. Now, because, and I won't call anybody on this because this is kind of rapid fire type questions here, but let me begin to break down your paradigm a little bit for those that may be stuck around 16. Let me give you a hint. Here's the hint. Think 2 by 2. And see if that adds to your total. Think 2 by 2. Think 3 by 3. If there's 1 by 1, then there's 2 by 2, then there's 3 by 3. Now, before we get to the total, let me ask you this. We all are going to assume we started at 16. As I begin to give the tips, the 2 by 2 and the 3 by 3, how many of you all of a sudden found more squares? We're going to have a lot in that seminar tomorrow morning. Or you saw through it very quickly. Okay? Raise your hand if you've got more than 20. More than 20. Okay? Keep your hand up if you've got more than 24. More than 24. If not, put your hands down. Okay? If you've got more than 28, keep your hand up. If you're 28 or less, put your hand down. If you've got 30 or more, keep your hand up. 30 or more. All right, just rapid fire. What do you got?
30.
30. 30. Other 30s? We got other 31? 31? 31. All right. This is awesome. This is like an advanced crowd. I've done this like 104 times, and I've got 30 every time. I want to know where that other one is. It's probably there. That's the way paradigms work. There probably is one there, okay? So we got 16, right? Everybody got 16. Okay? Here's a clue. There's one big one. Okay? There's one big one. That's 17. All right, let's see if this pointer works here. Okay? All right, so we said 2 by 2, right? So there's one. So we're going to go 18, 19, 20, 21. You got one in the middle, 22, right? Then you got this guy right here, 23, 24, 25, 26. Those are all the 2 by 2s. And then you have 4 3 by 3s. If you do the 3 by 3s, you get 4 of those. Okay? 30. Is there another one that I'm missing?
It's after dinner.
Gotcha. Hey, and listen, if it is, then that even proves the point even more about this concept of paradigms. But you see what happens as you begin to think of things differently, you see it a little bit differently. All right, I got another good one for you, but I'm going to have to walk up here so I can click the video on this. Now, here's a 30-second video for you that you're going to have to watch very, very closely. Okay? Your job is going to be to count the passes. Now, there's going to be sound coming from my laptop. It's not connected. We don't need the sound. Don't worry about it. Don't let this distract you. But here's what's going to happen. When I click play, there will be 2 basketball teams. One team is wearing white t-shirts. One team is wearing black t-shirts. From the moment I click play, the team wearing the white t-shirts will begin passing the basketball. But the team wearing black t-shirts, they're like defending, and I think they're even passing a ball themselves. What you need to know, what I'm asking of you, is I want you to count how many times, how many passes does the team wearing white t-shirts make? You with me? It's going to start fast. Get ready. You're going to hear a sound in the beginning. Remember, you don't need to know that. Don't worry about that. Here we go.
Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes?
All right, hold your answers. Hold your answers. How many got 10? At least 10? At least 12? At least 15? Okay, but here's the great thing about this one. The number really doesn't even matter. Here's what matters. Correct answer was 15, but watch this. Did you see the gorilla?
That's good.
That's pretty good, huh? Yeah. The seminar tomorrow morning is going to be loaded with people, I think. All right, what are we seeing? I mean, what I want you to do is begin to think about even the president's example, the count the boxes, the passes, okay? We could do this. We're going to skip this one for time purposes. But if I started the word star and I said, what comes to your mind, and go tell somebody, and we did the same thing over here, we would end up 10 people later with a very different final word or concept, because people's paradigms when they hear a certain word. I'll give you a great one. I mentioned I worked in the insurance industry for 11 years. Here's one of insurance. You guys probably, maybe even as consumers, know this one. There's a really dangerous term in the insurance industry. It's called full coverage. And so what happens is policyholders think, I was in the auto business, that they can drive their car off the cliff and the magical insurance company is going to pay for everything because I have full coverage. It's not how it works. But that's how insurance agents oftentimes sell it, and it leads to a massive, major, serious misinterpretation that leads to issues. That's one of the challenges with paradigms, okay? Number 4. Managing people. Managing people. Here's what I want to know. Here's what I want to know. When you think of managing people, would somebody raise their hand? Tell me the most important thing. If you have a staff of people that work for you or report to you or that you rely on at your business in one way, and you're responsible for these people being part of your team and setting the vision for the company, what I want to know is, I want to know the first thing that comes to your mind. Somebody raise a hand. All right, you guys know how this works. Will you introduce yourself?
My name is Joe, Cedar Rock Byron.
Joe!
Probably respect.
Respect, that's a good one. Somebody else. I need a quick hand. Somebody, come on. Give me a hand. What comes to your mind when you think of managing people? Introduce yourself.
My name's Jonathan.
Jonathan! Come on, you guys got, come on, it's 7:43. You guys have had a good meal. I need some energy, folks. Let's go. Okay.
Effective communication.
Effective communication. Excellent. By the way, since I'm passing the mic, I'm not writing these down on the board, but I'm going to give you a little hint. In about 10 minutes, we're going to come back to this list. Okay? Respect, effective communication. Somebody else, let me see a hand. I saw one over here. All right. You guys probably know each other, but it's nice to get a good cheer, you know?
John Blair.
John!
Caring.
Say it again?
Caring.
Caring for people, exactly. How about another one? Come on, somebody. Give me one more. Trust. Excellent. We could go on and on and on and on. Some of you are even writing down this list, which is great. What's going to happen here is in just a few minutes we're going to get to some things where we're going to look back at this list and go, hey, wait a minute. I'm not sure both of those can be true. So I'll give you a heads up and a warning about the items we just listed. Keep those in your mind, and we could list 100 more things. We're going to refer back to those in just a moment when we get into some paradigms and some myths, okay? So here's the deal. Understanding paradigms. We've talked about 4 different examples. Let me ask you a couple of very important questions. Here's the first one. We talked a little bit about this already. Why do they exist? Why do paradigms exist? In a minute we're going to get to why they matter. But why do they exist? I've made a quick list here for you. I want you to think about this. Different cultures, different individual experiences, language, dialects. Listen, I live in South Alabama. Let me give you, anybody here from Alabama? Live in Alabama? Okay, good. I can pick on my home state without offending anybody. When you visit Alabama, let me give you a little tip. We only have 25 letters. Okay? In Alabama, particularly northwest Alabama, we don't have L's. The letter L, we don't have L's. They'll say in the wintertime, it gets so cold, it's so cold. Oh, it's so cold. I live in Gulf Shores, Alabama. In January, it's cold at the Gulf. You got to take the L out, okay? Okay? You guys know in the South we have sweet tea, right? The tea is so sweet in Alabama. Leland's going, this is not helping my people at all. I mean, sweet tea, what is this? It's so sweet, you got to mix unsweet with it. You know what that's called, don't you? Hife and hife. Hife and hife, yep. Get some hife and hife tea next time you hit the Gulf. Got to take the L out, okay? Well, I joke, and I'm picking on my home state. I'm telling you, there have been times when I have asked people, I have no idea what you just said. Okay, I'm a native Texan, so I've got a southern accent too, but it is very, very different in the southeast, particularly in Alabama, and it really does have influence and have impact on certain words and how people perceive things. It really can. All of those things can. And remember what I said earlier about paradigms. There's not one that's right or wrong or good or bad. The truth is, if Leland and I are communicating on a subject matter, I have a paradigm about something and he has one too. It may be the same and it may not be. It does not matter which one is right or wrong. What matters is, are we thinking the same one? And if we're not, we're going to have communication issues. Somebody over here said communication. Okay? So that's why they exist. What are the dangers? Why am I spending 15 minutes of this seminar talking about paradigms? Well, here's some things to think about. Miscommunication, which we've just talked about. I also think that being stuck in a paradigm limits our thinking. We don't answer questions right, like we had a chance to win $100 and we missed it because we were limited. We were limited in our thinking, counting the boxes. The liability or fault, I'm guessing, probably happens in other industries too, not just insurance with full coverage, but probably if I asked you to go around and give me some examples from your industry, you could probably give me terminology or concepts or ideas that maybe are thought about or whatever, maybe across the country or in different businesses are thought of very differently. And then certainly misunderstandings happen, and I've actually labeled that as myths. Now, why in the world have we gone through all of this? I'll tell you why. Because for the subject at hand, managing people and relating with people, we have myths about those two. We have paradigms about those two. And paradigms can be so limiting, they can really turn into myths. Now, let me give you a little additional thought, and I don't say this to every group that I speak to, but I mean this genuinely. I genuinely mean what I'm about to say. Several of you, probably no less than 5 of you, in my short time here tonight, have expressed to me that you and I share the same values. I'm a man of faith. I'm a family man. I love my wife, I love my kids, I miss them dearly. My 15-year-old's in an area volleyball match tonight that I wish I was there to see, but that's okay, there'll be another one. And several of you have already found me tonight. I guess you found my website, you found some good stuff and some bad stuff probably, so we're not going to go there. But you saw what I believe and you've expressed to me that we share these same values. First of all, that means a lot. That really means a lot. It's one of the reasons I'm so excited. We talked about my energy and my excitement to be here with you guys because of that shared passion. But let me tell you this. Here's one of these elephant in the room things, okay? This may be a gotta get. If you want to write this down, it's something you gotta get. You can be the nicest person in the world with the greatest values and be a horrible manager of people. The message of managing people is not about being nice. I didn't come here tonight and tomorrow morning to talk to you about being nice people with great values. The message is very, very different. I hope you're nice, and I hope you love people, and I hope you share those same values. All of those things are very important and very true, but they're characteristics of a great manager, but not necessarily the nuts and bolts of what a manager has to do. So as we begin to unpack, and I'm going to close tonight with 4 management myths. And what I hope is that you will let the paradigm sort of break down and go away, whatever blinders, and if you're sitting there thinking, you know, I'm really a nice person, I'm really a great person, and let these management myths really challenge you. Okay? And like I say, you may end up leaving with questions, but that's what tomorrow morning is for. Okay? So let's kind of dive into this a little bit. I've basically talked about this already. Sometimes a paradigm equals a myth, but guess what? Just because you believe something to be true doesn't make it true. You can believe 1 + 1 is 3, but it's not. Some places in Alabama it is, but not everywhere. Okay? All right, so here we go. We're going to take a look at 4 management myths. So what we've done so far is we've set ourselves up, right? We've kind of seen what happens when we're limited in our thinking, and we're kind of warning you against that. I want to warn you against that. So we go through this, you really let it hit home, and this may be where some of the elephants in the room get pointed out. Okay, let's talk about management myth number 1. You know, I'm just too busy. I don't have time for meetings. I don't have time for training. I don't have time for seminars. I mean, I don't have time to babysit these people. These people are adults. I got things to do. I got jobs to sell. I'm already working 12 hours a day. Whatever the number is. You know, Todd, I love people. Todd, I respect people. Todd, I really care about my staff. They've been with me a long time. But I just don't have time. You can believe it to be true, but that is very unfortunate if you do. If it's a myth, then there has to be a brutal fact, right? The brutal facts are activity does not equal accomplishment. You can be busy all day long and that means nothing. There's a gotta get for you. If you see it in a black box there with yellow writing, you probably want to, it's a gotta get. Okay? Some of the busiest people in the world are some of the most least productive people I know. Let that sink in for a minute. Some of the busiest people I know are some of the least productive people that I know. Activity does not equal accomplishment. Here's something else that goes along with it. You know the number 1 reason for employee turnover? Tomorrow, there's a brief survey in here I'm going to share with you. This is one of my favorite books. It's called First, Break All the Rules by a guy named Marcus Buckingham. Okay? I'm going to leave these books up here. You're welcome to stop by and write down the title, the names and the titles. Marcus Buckingham talks a lot about employee turnover and management culture and organizational development. If you've heard the book Good to Great, organizations that are pretty good, but they want to go to being great, they say the same thing. People need to know what's expected of them. It is the number 1 factor for employee dissatisfaction, which leads to lack of production and ultimately turnover. Well, guess what? Remember that list I told you about we're going to go back to? You can't tell me about caring and communication and all these kind of things and believe this. They both can't be true. Here's why. When we say we don't have time for meetings and training and things like that, what we're basically saying is we don't have time to cast the expectations and to cast the vision. That's what it takes, is a leader or a manager casting that vision and making sure when people come to work, they know what's expected of them. Okay? So all those little activities we're running around doing that get in our way and prevent us from setting expectations is what creates the myth. Okay? Now, what I hope right now what you're doing is you're thinking, okay, Todd, you hadn't lived a day in my world. You don't know. Well, the company that I work for, we have 800 people. I live the challenges. That's one of the things Leland told me, and I told Leland I had a very similar presentation last week with a client in Mobile, Alabama, and the guy in Mobile said the same thing. He said, one of the reasons, Todd, I wanted you to come in is because you're doing this every day. You live this every day. I told you I'm not a consultant. I don't do this full time. I have a full-time job. I'm living in this, okay? And I can tell you how critical it is, and you know this, but if we're going to set expectations, we must prioritize that time, and it is going to require us to break that paradigm in order to break that myth. That's what tomorrow's about. We're going to have a ton of stuff that'll help you do that. I hope you're writing down that question right now. Okay, Todd, you busted me. I'm one of the ones that said I don't have time. So tell me what to do. That's what tomorrow morning is about. Please write that down, okay? Management myth number 2. I'm in the storage rental business. That's a myth. You guys know the tagline, right? You're in the people business. That's what Pop always said. Your people are not robots. They are not widgets. They are humans with hearts and brains. And your impact on them will last 40 plus years. Just ask Willie. Willie was a foreman in the shop where my grandfather worked that basically, without giving too much detail, lost most of his arm in an accident pouring steel in this foundry where my grandfather had worked for 40 years. My grandfather, who was the president of the foundry at this time, worked in the management office across the street, but spent every day, here's another got to get for you, every single day he came to work in a suit, and you know what he did first thing? Every morning he put on a hard hat and he went across the street. And he walked every square foot of that foundry, and he got to know people like Willie, and when Willie got hurt,
Amen.
Pop was the first person at the hospital.
Amen.
Willie's family came up to me at my grandfather's funeral in October of last year and said, I want you to know your grandfather was the first one to the hospital. This was years ago. We're in the people business. And listen, guys, this is a great example. Here's the elephant in the room. You know that already. You care about people. I can tell that. You guys have incredible, this is a great, great group of people that cares a lot about people, but it has to convert. It has to convert. We have to apply it in our jobs. We've got to take it and do things. That's what tomorrow morning's about, okay? Let this probe into you a little bit and begin to break down the paradigm. Management myth number 3. It's a myth that leadership equals management. Now, it's important, but the equal sign is what makes it a myth. So what's the brutal facts? The brutal facts is that management is a participative sport. Don't make me say that 3 times. I can't say that word, but it's where you participate. That's what management is, right? And guess what? Not everyone is qualified for it. I don't know why this happens in corporate America. It's the growth pains of certain companies, which is a good thing, by the way, when companies are growing. But just because you can do your job well does not make you a great manager of people. But that's the number one way people get promoted in corporate America. I worked for an insurance company, I told you, for 11 years. Guess where our claims managers came from in the insurance company? They were claims adjusters. Great claims adjusters, hello, don't make great managers. Some of them do, but it's because they possess a different skill set. The requirements of being a claims adjuster does not mean you have any business managing people. But that's what happens. That's what happens. We don't have a system for identifying people who know how to manage and lead other people. Okay? You can still be a great leader. Tom is a co-worker of mine from the insurance company who I could go on and on and on. I won't, but an incredible leader of people and a horrible manager of people. His cell phone only went one way. He called you when he was good and ready. Never answered an inbound call when his employees needed him. Maybe that's a guy to get for some of you. We could point to the elephant in the room, which I feel like there's one right here, maybe more than one. And all I would ask you is, if you tell me that you want to communicate with your people and you care about your people, you can't ignore their phone call. You can, but then you don't. Look and listen, I realize there's conflicting days are crazy and there's somebody else calling and somebody, I realize that. I'm talking about in general, if you're deep within your heart, you choose to let the call to go to voicemail, you can't tell me at the same time you believe in caring and communicating. That's something you're going to have to think about a little bit, right? That's what Tom was. Tom was a horrible manager of people. He was not there when his people needed him. Great leader, very motivating and great vision. Terrible manager. And here's number 4. This is a myth. I'm a great manager because I empower my people. This is one I've added. You don't have a note for this, but that's okay if you want to jot this down. I'm a great manager because I empower my people. You know, I hate this concept of micromanagement. I will never be a micromanager. I empower my people. Well, guess what that turns into? It turns into a little word called abandonment. It's an excuse for abandoning your people. Well, they're adults, they know what to do. I've empowered them. No, you haven't. You've abandoned them. And guess what happens when they're abandoned? They don't know what's expected. Remember that from number 1? When they don't know what's expected, their production's down or they go find another place to work. Empowerment and abandonment are not the same thing. Okay, I got about 3 minutes and we'll be done, I promise. Here's where we are. We defined this concept of paradigms, and we said that we need to break down getting locked into certain things, and one of the things we need to break down is how we see people and how we view the concept of management. I am a big fan of this concept called breakaway. Okay, here's kind of how it looks. I'm a visual guy. I put things in pictures here. Andy Stanley, some of you may know, is a pastor in North Point Church in Alpharetta, just north Atlanta, son of Charles Stanley. And Andy, I heard one time, preach a sermon, and in this sermon he included this concept called breakaway. I'm going to tie this back into our talk, I promise. Here's what he says about breakaway. He says, let's start at the end. Let's start at the outcomes. And you could pick thousands of topics. You could pick the success of your business. You could pick relationships. You could pick money. You could go on and on and on and on. Any scenario in life, any situation in life, and you could put that in that outcome box. And it might be something that you're not totally satisfied with. You know, I haven't saved enough money, or, you know, the relationship with someone hasn't gone right, or whatever the case may be. I mean, you could put anything in that box. And here's what Andy says. So many people just get stuck at that box. They don't go to the next level or the next. They get stuck in that, and those are the complainers. Those are who I call the problem finders. Okay? What I've got to get for you. Are you a problem solver or a problem finder? You're one of the two. Folks that get stuck in that box about outcomes and complain about outcomes, those are problem finders. Not very fun to be around. Sometimes, though, we do have enough courage or enough strength to step up to the decisions box. Like me, I've struggled with my weight. I don't eat very healthy. I don't exercise as much as I should. I really wish I lost about 25 pounds. There have been times when I've weighed 40 pounds less than I do right now. There's been times I've weighed 10 pounds more than I do right now. That fluctuation is the result of the decisions I make. Those decisions lead to the outcomes of maybe eating a little more healthy or exercising a little more. But guess what? Those decisions are also temporary. Dr. Stanley says if you really want to break away from something, you can't just be a problem finder. You can't even just go back to decisions. You've got to go all the way back to what you deeply hold about something, okay? And on the next slide, we put these little arrows here. And that's what he did in his presentation. He said, you know, even that's not good enough because it's not breakaway. You just end up really, tomorrow feels like yesterday, next week feels like last week did, next year feels like last year. But if you really make yourself go back and challenge what you deeply believe, you will make different decisions from those beliefs. Different decisions lead to different outcomes. You can't stop at outcomes, you can't stop at decisions, you've got to go back to the core. That's what tonight is about, to get us ready for tomorrow. And quite honestly, Leland didn't ask me to say this, but quite honestly, I hope that's what this conference is about. I hope when you walk in tomorrow, you are ready to really open your minds and be ready to consider some new thoughts. So I have some questions for you in closing. Here's 3 questions and we're done. These are just questions to be thinking about. What personal paradigms do you face? They could be related to how your business operates. They could be related to the people around you. What personal paradigms? You could even substitute the word myths. What personal paradigms or myths do you face? By the way, I think this is an additional slide you don't have. I wanted to use this kind of as a wrap-up. Number 2, which of those 4 management myths hit you the hardest? Not to be answered right now. It's okay. You got 2 more days of this. Okay? What paradigms do you face and what management myths hit you the hardest? And then, did you honestly come to this conference to break away? If you did, you'll come in the morning, your mind will be open, and you will be ready to really allow some of those deeply held beliefs possibly be challenged a little bit. And if the speakers do their job, like I'm going to be challenged to do tomorrow morning, I'll give you some good stuff. I'll give you some things you can really fill in those gaps with if you're saying I'm ready. Is that a deal? All right. Well, my last slide, I believe this, and I know you guys, since we share such the same values, you believe this too. I don't think often enough people just say thank you. You know, at the end of the day, I try to ask myself, and I don't do this every day, but how many people had reason to tell me thank you today? I appreciate you very much. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to all of you who are here. You've made sacrifices to be here. Thank you for letting me be the elephant in the room guy. Point to a few things, and I promise I will be back tomorrow morning and we'll get our hands on some stuff maybe that can begin to fill some of those voids a little bit as we open our minds a little bit, okay? Y'all have a great evening. Thank you for your time.